We may live over 5,000 miles from Lincoln Financial Field, but what we lack in proximity, we make up for in film study. And each and every week, we'll be bringing you in-depth film breakdowns from across the pond and the Sooner State. Welcome to On the Shane page. I am your host, Shane Haff. You can follow me on Twitter at ShaneHaffNFL. And I am joined by BGN's own film guru, on his birthday, no less, Jonny Page. It's his birthday. You got to give him a follow at JohnnyPage9. Jonny, recording a podcast for your birthday. That's such dedication to your craft. I applaud you.
21 plus 10, man. Which is what I'm telling everyone today. I've done the great, what everyone should do on their birthday, really, especially when they're off work. So I had a great day. Been uptown, basically ate, drunk, as much as I possibly could, really, within reason with having a 7-month-old on me. So the beers was slightly less, but the food was therefore slightly increased. So I'm not sure if I'm like slightly tipsy, very full, quite uncomfortably full, in like a good way. I couldn't have been that full because I just smashed a lovely donut literally 5 minutes before recording. So, it should be a good pod. We were saying off air, it's actually quite an interesting one because we've got new things to talk about. Like the run game still sucks, but it sucks in a different way. So we can talk about it without just saying the same thing. So hopefully we've actually got some new things to say this week, Shane, which is awesome. And I did actually really enjoy this game, I must admit. There's always games every year that I really want to win. And because last week was just so rough, I really wanted to win this one. I think part of the Carson Wentz thing at the link, and I was like, they can't. They can't lose this game. I really wanted them to do it. So I was glad that they beat. I actually like Carson Wentz, but I enjoyed this win quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jonny, now that you're, as you said, 21 plus 10, you've kind of officially reached that point where if you were an NFL player, we would call you old. So I'll let you take that however you want to. But,
No, it's very fair.
All right. Well, let's dive in. And Jonny, since it is your birthday, I'll let you choose. Should we start on the offense or the defense today? Keeping in mind, we're probably going to spend like twice the time on whichever one you pick, because that seems to be our vibe.
Yeah, well, let's do the offense. I said there's more unique stuff this week on offense, so should we get this show on the road on the offense?
All right, let's do it. You want me to lead us off, or do you want to?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. Let me get my screen shared here. Okay. So, my first point on offense I want to talk about is the Eagles' scramble drill. I feel like Jonny and I have really complained about scramble drill for like 2 years now. And in this game, it felt like the Eagles finally got some things working. And it seemed like there were some rules that at least maybe a few plays that just worked out better. And so this first play is the opening drive. It's the 4th and 4 where they choose to go for it. And I broke down on the past game review how awful this route concept is for 4th and 4. So I'm not going to do that here. But I just want you to notice A.J. Brown. So many times, and Hurts has all day to throw, of course, in the pocket, but so many times we've just seen guys stand there and nobody work to get open. And here you get A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts on the same page. Jalen points him deep, and you get the touchdown off of what honestly should have been a turnover on downs given that play call. And then there were a couple other really high leverage scramble drill moments, both on 3rd and long. We had got a 3rd and 15 here, and if I'm Jalen's QB coach here, I'm probably telling him like check the ball down to Dallas Goedert here and just get a few yards. You're not going to get the first down, but just get the ball out. And maybe that's why I'm not his QB coach, because he does a fantastic job of starting to scramble forward. Let me get the whole play again here. He does a fantastic job of stepping up, catching number 58, looping inside, scrambling out to the sideline. Devontae Smith gets his head around and works back, and you end up converting on a 3rd and 15 that you had no business converting on. And then we get to a 3rd and 13. And again, this is going to be Hurts evading pressure and Hurts converting, this time to the bottom of the screen to A.J. Brown. And so there's pressure. He starts to scramble up. Eyes downfield the whole time. And again, so many times we've seen the receiver just stand here, but A.J. Brown starts to act like he's going to run deep and then breaks back to the sticks, and you move the chains again when you should have been punting. So that's 3 times. The Eagles should have had a turnover on downs. There should have been 2 third and longs that led to punts, and they got conversions on all of those, a touchdown off of one of them. And that's just such a huge improvement. One of the biggest benefits of having a mobile quarterback is the ability to get those second reaction plays when your drawn up play doesn't work. And that's even more important for the Eagles, whose drawn up play is quite often garbage. If you can get a second play out of that, it's really nice. Now, it's worth pointing out, and Eric pointed this out on Twitter, that those 3 scramble drills and the play action bomb to Devontae Smith generated 20 expected points added, and the rest of the passes combined generated -1. So there's still issues in the passing game, and I don't think people should delude themselves into thinking there's not, just because Hurts threw for over 300 yards in this game. But scramble drill is a huge step in the right direction. At least if we can't fix the pass game design, maybe our good players can just override that and go make good plays anyway. So I was really impressed with scramble drill in this one.
Yeah, we sort of said before, we're not going to moan much about some of the design because, to be honest, we could say the same thing for like 3 years. So at some point, you're like, it is what it is. We can talk about it all day long, but the one thing that you can improve is how you coach individual things. And I think they had a real plan this week for the scramble drill. I know Sirianni came out and said they always coach it really well, but saying that is one thing, actually doing it is another thing. The A.J. Brown one's my favorite example because we've seen in the past that receivers and quarterback, they often don't seem on the same page in terms of like when to go short, when to go deep, and you end up getting like 2 receivers in the same area of the field, or one receiver just sort of standing there. What A.J. Brown does really well on that rep is you can see he starts to go vertical and then comes back towards the ball, but it's by design. He looks at Hurts. He knows where he's going. Devontae Smith does the exact same. Devontae Smith's running an out and up. And I don't believe in coincidences that much. So the fact that you had twice in the same game, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown running a vertical route, stopping and coming back to the ball and catching it on the sideline when Hurts rolled out to their side of the field, that seems to me like that's a plan. Like, that looks out of structure, right? The A.J. Brown third down looked out of structure, but you can very easily say, right, we're going to call all hitches, which all hitches is not always what they call, because it could be like 4 verts, and it could be if they're sitting deep, turn around, etc. So it could end up a comeback or a vertical route, but whatever it is. And then the plan could literally be, right, if we don't get the coverage we want, I'm going to roll right. We know we're 1-on-1 on the outside, come back towards the football. That's out of structure, but I've said this before, it's sort of in structure. So you can sort of like lie. And it might just be a coincidence. I might be completely wrong here. But the fact they had 2 plays that were identical this week outside of structure, one rolling to the left and one rolling to the right, maybe like makes me think they've looked at this and thought that's something we can do. I'll actually throw my first point in really quickly as well, because my other one's a little bit longer. I'm only going to show one play, which is play 7 on my film thread. My first thing was a bit of a weird one, actually. I just put Hurts being really calm. I think we can talk all we want about like how well he played, and I think we all know he played very, very well in this game. I think the thing that stood out for me more than anything, Shane, if you just pause it pre-snap for a second, because I'll talk about this, was that this Vikings defense does an exceptionally good job confusing quarterbacks. And when I scouted with the defense, it was sort of laughable. And I said off air, like, you've just got to sort of almost like ignore the chaos and just do what you can do. But quarterbacks do end up looking frazzled. They make some really bad mistakes against this defense, and they look under pressure. Hurts looked like this was a practice game. Like, he had no worry at all. And this is a really nice example. It's a really short throw. This ball ends up going to his right-hand side. It's just a little comeback, or just a little short hitch. But look at how much the Vikings try and confuse him pre-snap. They don't even have a single high safety. Their coverage drives me insane. They have like a wide safety, then he ends up walking towards the middle of the field. They end up showing like a linebacker through the A-gap, then they drop one A-gap, and I think they drop the edge defender here. And all of this is happening as Hurts is basically looking pre-snap. And then if you hit a play from here, even now it's changing. 22's creeping, one linebacker's creeping, another linebacker's creeping. The edge ends up dropping, and he just completes a really short throw. It's only like a 6-yard gain. But I watched it and I was like, he doesn't seem to have any panic. He doesn't see the edge defender drop and think, right, I better go to the left-hand side. He just, nope, I know where the edge is going. It's Devontae Smith. I'll find him open. And I just thought a lot of the game was in rhythm. Except for the out-of-structure throws, most of this game was in rhythm, and it was very well designed, I thought, in certain places. Especially, though, the thing that stood out was just Hurts didn't seem to have any care in the world that they were rotating coverages at the last minute, which I thought was really cool because, as I said, as someone who watched the Vikings defense a lot last week, they terrified opposing defenses. So much so that defenses just didn't even bother going down the field on them. And Hurts felt like, I don't care what you're doing. I've almost got a plan in my head pre-snap. And most of the time, I think he executed it really well.
Yeah, it was a really good Hurts game. Contrary to what Twitter is trying to tell you at this point, but we were talking about that in the Discord.
If only someone could come up with disguising coverages, Shane, then Hurts wouldn't have a clue.
I know.
Just don't leave any single coverage, disguise your coverages, and vary up your fronts. Like, did the guy watch the Vikings defense this week? All they were doing was moving. If anything, it was too disguised. I find Flores a bit much at times, and there were some coverages in this game I thought were pretty awful because they were just doing so much. But anyway, yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, go on my Twitter and you'll see what we're talking about.
Yeah. Question here from Brett Eclipse said the players are talking about how Smitty was petitioning for the play action bomb and had to have Landon Dickerson relay that to get the play call. Is that normal?
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah, I don't know about the Landon Dickerson of it all. But yeah, a player seeing something and going to the coaching staff and being like, this is going to work is very common.
I found that a little bit like people getting in. I saw people online saying like, oh, Patullo can't even like call a play. I'm like, well, hang on a minute. I'm not exactly going to give Patullo loads of credit, but the play is in the install. It's there. It's there to run. Yeah. It's in the playbook. Then you make up a play. Yes, if Devontae Smith sees something, I want a coach that listens to the players out there. Like, that's perfectly fine.
It's similar to how Jonny and I talk about that when you're watching film, you can't focus on every player all at once. It's like that, only more on the sideline. Like, you're trying to call plays and you're watching what happens, and especially from the sideline and not a booth, you're not even getting the overhead angles. The perspective is off. Like, there's a lot of things to juggle there, and nobody knows more what the cornerback and the safety is doing every play than the receiver that's lined up on that side of the field. So that's totally normal. I'm not sure about the Landon Dickerson relaying it part, but
yeah, I haven't heard the Dickerson thing, but that could have just been a conversation, couldn't it? That someone, or he told someone as he was talking and it got relayed back. As long as the coaches are listening to players to an extent, that's fine. But that play was in the install. Patullo said they ran it on Wednesday. Like, that's not just a freak moment. It's not Devontae Smith just making it up on the fly.
Yeah. So, all right, let's go to my second point. I want to talk about the Eagles' protections. And I want to look at back-to-back plays on the final drive, and for some reason it won't let me draw on the screen, so this might be interesting. But the Eagles, I really liked their decision not to try to run the clock out, and instead to go try to get a first down, because I was fully prepared when they ran on first down and the Vikings took a timeout. I was fully prepared for them to run on second down, run on third down, and be content to punt and have the defense protect the lead. And I would have been really upset with that. Instead, they come out and they decide they're going to throw the ball. And on back-to-back plays, the Vikings showed a zero blitz. And I'm just going to roll a little bit closer to the snap here so you can see the safety comes down, kicks in this guy. So this is zero blitz. Like, maybe we could bail guys off of this, but this looks like zero pressure. And so if it's zero pressure, there's going to be a man free. And the Eagles just run double slants. And, I saw people online say, well, Goddard is open on this one. And he is, but usually when you run those, you are running the first slant to clear space for the second. And you just don't have time to read that. And also, if one of these guys drops out off the line, Goddard's route is more easy to get underneath than A.J. Brown's. And so you can see this is open. Like, it's a bad throw. He's getting hit. But I didn't like the protection behind it. And this is something the Eagles consistently asked Saquon to do in this game, and he struggled with. But when they get up to the line, and number 55 bumps out here, so you don't want to ask your running back to block a defensive lineman. You want to ask him to block one of the linebackers. And so to me, What the Eagles choose to do is they slide their protection to the left, and they ask Saquon to come across Jalen Hurts into the play side and block number 55. And so it's a further distance for him to travel. You're asking him to block a guy that's in the throwing window. Like, if you're throwing it to the other side of the field, I don't mind you having him cross here. But I don't like having the running back cross to the play side to try to pick up a linebacker that now has a head of steam. And when you add on to that the way the Eagles have to go silent count and it's easy to time up their snaps, you can see how this just causes issues. The guy's right in Jalen Hurts' face. The ball's got to come out a little quicker than you wanted. It's a bad throw. We could have protected that better.
Just quickly, Shane, I had this point when we watched, I can't remember the game, was it the Rams game? I think, was it AJ Dillon who had Jared Verse?
Yes.
I'm not blaming Stoutland for it, but the Eagles ask, I don't know if other teams do it the same way the Eagles do, and I must admit, it's one of those points, when you have when you're watching film, but the Eagles ask their back to do quite a lot in pass protection at the moment. I think Barkley's actually done so much better than I thought he would have. Shipley was bad in this game. Like, he had 2 reps that were just awful. But they do ask their running backs to do quite a lot in pass protection. It's just an interesting way the offense is designed. They seem to be quite comfortable asking backs to pass protect against very good players. Mm-hmm. I just remember the Jared Verse one stands out against, I'm sure it was Jared Verse against AJ Dillon. Or it might have even been, maybe it wasn't Verse. Maybe it was a Broncos game.
No, it was
might
Verse.
Have been,
was
it Verse? I'm sure they had another one against the Broncos as well. But I think all of the backs seem to get beat every week. And some of it is maybe none of them are exceptional, but also maybe it's really hard on them. Anyway, just a thought I had watching this week.
Yeah, so to me, if you just slide the line to the left and you let Saquon block number 51 instead, that's just easier. And honestly, you don't often want to have a back going on a defensive end, but if you wanted to full slide this to the left to get offensive linemen on the 5 guys closest and just have him hit the end, this ball's coming out fast anyways. It's 0 pressure. This defensive end is unlikely to get there even if it was a free run. So to me, either one of those would be better. And I thought they did a better job of that on the second one. So they same kind of look here. The Vikings are all up on the line. We're calling 0, and calling the sluggo was a brilliant move here because you just tried to throw the slant. It was open. It's going to be open again. Isaiah Rodgers overplays it. This is an easy little pitch and catch. And so I'll play that out, and then we can talk about the protection. One thing that's different is they keep Dallas Goedert in to block this time. And I actually think they block it kind of poorly, but just schematically, the blocking made a lot more sense, and so it doesn't end up mattering. And so let's get right to the snap here. And so this time what the Eagles are going to do is they just slide out here. Full slide to the left. It's confusing when it's the left, but it's the right of the screen. And I think Goddard's supposed to take this end, and Barkley is supposed to come out to the edge, and he doesn't because Goddard gets beat inside and he kind of tries to help out there. And so you actually end up with 2 free runners potentially. See, he jumps inside, and so Saquon tries to pick that up. But even with this free runner off of the edge, look at the time Hurts has. And he's just able to fade back and throw that. I just think it's a much easier block to ask your back to step out to the non-play side that he's already lined up on than to come across the formation into the play side. And so, back to the first play, if that's the way that you want to run that protection, just align Barkley on the other side of Hurts. Just give him that shorter block, because it was something, not just those 2 plays, but consistently, I felt like Barkley struggled with in this game, and they kept asking him to do.
Yeah, and as I said, Shipley had a couple of poor reps as well, didn't he?
Yes.
This is totally off topic, so I'm just going to put you on the spot, which is always good. Another thought I had when watching this week's film is Dallas Goedert still Dallas Goedert?
He doesn't seem, from a blocking perspective, he does not seem to be the same player.
From an everything perspective, if you watch there was a couple of all hitches they ran in this game, and man's turning slow, really slow. When was the last time he had one of those broken tackle type plays where he just bounced off 4 defenders? And I'll be honest, I don't think he's blocking very well in the run game. I'm going to get into it more next week, and I've got quite a few things to excuse him with the run game. But I think maybe we speak a lot about tight end too, and I think maybe tight end in general is just a bit of a weakness this year. And he had a really good game against the Giants a few games ago. Goddard, and his numbers aren't bad, and he's been relatively healthy this year for Goddard's sake. But I haven't really seen like what I'd like to have seen this year out of him, especially in the run blocking game. But that's probably a conversation for another day, probably an off-season pod when we see what happens with him. Right,
well, he's definitely not going to be an Eagle next year. He's gone.
Yeah. I've got two things I'm going to get into, and I'm almost going to combine them because they're both big parts. So the obvious thing is, Shane, and we had a comment from No Scenes, if that's how you pronounce his name, on wherever the comment came from, YouTube it sounds like. I'm going to do a deep dive into the Eagles run game next week. So the good thing about the bye week is we can get into something. I'm hoping actually to get a couple of offensive line guests because there are things about this run game that confuses me. And I'm also going to write about it for Bleeding Green Nation. So if you want to see video footage of me breaking it down with whoever the guest is, subscribe to Patreon. If you want to read about it, read BGN. The best thing is to do is both, because I'll probably always leave out something that I don't put in the other one on purpose. So long story short, the Eagles run game this week was atrocious. I don't really know what to say anymore. I can't be bothered to talk about Hurts in the run game. They don't want to do it, so whatever. There could be injury reasons, there could be concussion reasons, there could be all sorts of reasons. Who knows? They don't want to do it, so I'm going to shut up talking about it anymore because they just don't do it very often. They used to run a really diverse run game with about 7 or 8 runs every week. They now run 3. They run inside zone, split zone, and outside zone. And to be honest, if you really want, you could combine split zone and inside zone as the same play. If you want to count outside zone toss and outside zone as 2 different plays, all right, they maybe run 4, but that is literally it. So big point this week, and I'll combine 2 of them for an obvious reason, was under center runs. So the Eagles said they really wanted to get into under center runs this week. I don't know if I believe it, and play one with the first one to show Shane. So when you watch this Vikings defense, and I commented on this in the preview, they play a lot of light boxes and they play a lot of defensive backs, and they don't defend the run well. I'm not convinced, by the way, maybe I'll be wrong, under center's here to stay. I think this may have been a little bit of a specific matchup thing this week. I'll be intrigued to see if we do it 20 times again this week. But long story short, why did they want to go under center? And these are the plays I did like, the toss plays. And with Cam Jurgens out there, it actually worked pretty well. So I wanted to talk about this play, or not this play in general, actually, just under center in general. It started working relatively well early on, and it looked like the Vikings weren't prepared for it. And the Eagles had a few good runs on the first drive. Then the run game became basically a travesty, and there were a few other reasons. They started playing Fred Johnson as a 6th offensive lineman, and that went well at times as well. There were a few decent runs, but if you go to play 3, just very quickly, what happened quite a lot, and you can see it on this clip here, is the Vikings sort of knew what was coming. If you look at how quickly, like 22, 51 are getting across, I think that's another poor block by Goddard, by the way. But then again, they're asking him to make quite a difficult block inside, to be fair. But as the game went on, it felt like the Vikings just had a better and better and better read on what they were doing. And by the end of it, it got a bit ridiculous. To be honest with you, the running game in the second half from under center was appalling. And play 5 is the one that everyone's talking about. So to answer your question, No Seeing, you said, like, is it scheme? Is it individuals? The boring truth is, if you pause it here, Shane, sorry, just pre-snap. The boring truth is it's both. The players are not run blocking well. Whether Landon Dickerson's healthy or not, he's not mauling people. Tyler Steen's not a mauler. Jurgens got injured. Lane Johnson even had a couple of reach blocks in this game, Shane, that he struggled with. Jordan Mailata completely whiffs once a week. Now we've got to ask ourselves, has Jordan Mailata regressed? However old he is, as I frantically Googled his age, at 28 years of age, has he got worse? Is he suddenly missing one block every single week because he's worse? Or is he missing one block every single week because the team is asking him to make really difficult blocks and the defense knows what's coming? So there was 2 issues I had in this game. First of all, when they went under center, it was very, very obvious the Vikings knew what was coming. So look at the Vikings on this play, Shane. 6 men on the line of scrimmage. Literally, you've got a 6-man front, and you've got 2 linebackers behind it. So you've got 8 in the box, and you've basically got a safety who is ready to get downhill as well. Which, by the way, is a good thing about under center, because obviously you can run play action later on. You've got Brett Tooth in at center. Is it Toth or Tooth, if I'm pronouncing that
Toth.
correct? Toth, there you go. You are asking him to make possibly the most ridiculous reach block I've ever seen. He is lined up in the middle of the field, basically right down the hash. This guy's 3 yards, like, inside. Like, that is such a difficult block to make. Jason Kelsey would struggle to make that block, let alone a backup guard playing at center. So part of the issue with the run game is that you're just asking your offensive linemen to do things that they can't physically do. I actually think Lane Johnson struggles here on this play, Shane. So everyone looks at the center, but look at Lane Johnson's block as well. If I was to ask you who's 56 blocking and who's 65 blocking pre-snap, right? Just ask any ordinary fan, you'd say, well, it would make logical sense for 56 to block the guy right in front of him. They actually expect Lane to cross his face all the way across. They're asking 2 difficult reach blocks on this play. And that's really, really, really hard to do. So the offensive line just collapsed, and like it just got worse and worse and worse. Again, if you go to play 10 really quickly, Shane, as well, this was the Jordan Mailata whiff. It's just every week someone does this. Someone on the offensive line at least once has a play like this. And at what point do you start thinking they know what's happening? Like, I'm watching 58. Does he know what the Eagles are doing here? Like, he knows they're trying to get outside. And again, I don't know, because it's really, really hard to see this. But all I know is that they can't run block. And I said I'd go on a while, but I'm combining 2 and 3. However, the third point this week, Shane, is obviously play action. Because how can you talk about this game without play action? In a weird way, I don't want to sound like Kevin Patullo, but they got so predictable that they were going to run, and it's a play 8 on the film footage you're looking for. In a weird way, it got so predictable that actually they start getting really predictable coverage. Because if you pause it just pre-snap, what do the Vikings do when the Eagles go under center here? They rotate into a 6-man front, and they bring 2 guys in the box, just like we saw before. So what have you got? You've basically got 3 deep defenders. And then it's game over. Devontae Smith runs an absolutely beautiful route. I feel sorry for Isaiah Rodgers because he got hammered in this game. But in reality, he was put in a really difficult defensive scheme. Smith runs just a gorgeous route here, like the nuances to bend outside, to not run straight. It's just a standard post. But he makes sure he gets in his blind side and then cuts inside when he flips. It's a perfect play. So if you want to evaluate the under center run game this week, Shane, it was terrible. And the fact that people are like excited about the fact they ran more under center is almost laughable. However, you can't separate the run game from the pass game. We've been calling on sequencing. We've been calling them to marry stuff up. Well, good news, they did it. The bad news is, if they block like this from under center every week, teams aren't going to get fooled by play action anymore. Teams aren't going to bring up a 6-man front. Teams aren't going to put 9 men in the box, 8 men in the box. So I'm excited and happy by the under center play action game. The huge issue is they don't block well from under center. When they run, some of their best runs in this game, Shane, were from shotgun. And on every single one, I think you tweeted this, and I saw Devin Jackson tweet it as well. He actually didn't tweet about Hurts. He just tweeted about the run game. But on every successful one, Jalen Hurts held a linebacker. Sometimes he held a linebacker and an edge. And what I mean by that is number 44 was, I think it was a linebacker on a couple of occasions, was literally going the opposite direction to Barkley because Jalen Hurts may keep it.
Even though he never does.
Yes, but when you go up, but you can't take the risk, I guess. Whereas when you go under center, you get nothing. You can't really boot action like edge defenders. They're too clever these days. They're too athletic. It's really hard to take one out of the game. How many times have we seen an Eagles edge unblocked, chase down a play backside? So good news, play action and under center worked really effectively. The run and pass game was linked much better together. Bad news is I don't think it's sustainable unless the under center run game gets better. And as I said, next week I'm going to get into that in a lot of detail because I am fascinated to look at why this run game has got so bad. Where is wham? Where is trap? Where is counter? Where is tackle trap? It's not there. But yeah, Eric, it's a long con. I know, the 7-week con. Don't throw one play for the longest setup in human history is 6 weeks of terrible run game for one down the field shot against the Vikings. But there you go.
I can't wait to see what they cook up over the second half of the season for Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah. I almost feel bad, by the way, but because you did a past game review on Patreon, we don't get into it too much here. But for those wondering, like, thoughts on Hurts, like, yeah, he was really good in this game. Really good outside of structure. Really good. The accuracy on deep shots were brilliant. The anticipation on a few throws were really good. So I didn't bring him up in one of my points this week because, as I said, you do it a lot in the past game review, but couldn't get out of it without just mentioning him before you finish with a very cheery final point, Shane.
Yeah, Hurts was awesome in this game, and I went like 42 minutes on the past game review, so I try not to do too terribly much of repeats here, but if you're watching or listening and you enjoy this stuff, go check out our Patreon at Eagles Film Room. $5 a month tier gets you my weekly past game review as well as other things, but you can grab a free 1-week trial, watch everything I had to say about Hurts in this game. It was an awesome game. But I want to talk about Brett Toth because, well, and this play is the one you talked about earlier. They try to get him to do this reach block, and like, there's so many different ways you could do this that don't involve asking him to do that. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but why don't we like block like a normal team and we could pin pull somebody through or something? I mean, there's so many ways you could do something like this. But
sorry, Shane, or just call off the play, just audible. Hurts, Patuda, I don't know who's responsible for this, but run a different run play, run to the right.
Just
like
run duo.
Someone's got to be able to do something. You can't do this.
Yeah, run duo up the middle. Anyways,
yeah.
So many things you could do there, but this is a really hard block for anybody, much less an offensive guard playing out of position at center for his second snap of the day, by the way. Second snap that he's made. Like, he's not a center. And so he's focused on, how do I get the ball where it's supposed to be? And oh, by the way, now I have to pull off one of the most ridiculous blocks that you could ask a guy to do. And beyond that, this isn't Landon Dickerson that you moved to center, a good guard. Brett Toth's not even a good guard. He's a bad guard that's a backup playing out of position. Like, why don't we just make it a little easier for him? But sometimes it doesn't matter because here he's got a pretty normal block and he just gets blown up, and that's such a ridiculous move by Saquon, by the way. Like, just watch this and tell me Saquon's the problem with the running game and it's regression from his workload. Spins, cuts back the direction he just spun, and turns a 4-yard loss into a 5-yard gain. Here they try to get him to reach block again, and he gets blown up. Also, Landon Dickerson gets blown up. So again, like, why are we doing it this way? Why are we asking guys to block this? Like, just be smarter. Like, let's just block out to the edge here, and you could pin pull, you could get it. There's so many different ways you could do it. Stop asking everybody to make the most difficult blocks of their career. So that one's bad. And then we get to this play action dig route that our friend Max pointed out. But Brett Toth just gets destroyed into the backfield. And you can see how open this dig is and how late Hurts is to it. But he's so late to it because watch Brett Toth off the snap here. Like,
another play action rep, by the way.
Yeah, watch it. Just boom, beaten immediately. Hurts is trying to figure out where to get so he's not going to get hit. And then he's able to make that throw. But I went and looked it up. I went and looked up the highest blown block rates from Sports Info Solutions among interior offensive linemen right now to see where Brett Toth ranked in the run game. He has the third highest blown block rate among all NFL interior offensive linemen. So he's killing this team. And by the way, speaking of killing a team, the Houston Texans have number 1, number 2, and number 5 on that list. So poor CJ Stroud,
what else do you
man.
think the Eagles could do? I haven't looked at Cam Jurgens this week, but if he's not there, because I agree, I don't know how playable he is. Do you just go Drew Kendall and take the hit? Maybe play Matt Pryor at guard and move Dickerson to center, then you lose 2 positions. We said preseason the offensive line depth was a little bit worrying.
Yeah. For me,
it's proven to be true, isn't it?
I mean, you should have a feel for how these guys are in practice, and assuming that Toth is your best option, just don't ask him to make so many stupid blocks.
Yeah.
Like, just give him easier blocks. I don't know. There's ways to protect him.
Yeah, we're going too long already, but we've had tons of comments already about scheme. And yeah, like, I think overall, I haven't actually watched your QB review yet, but I imagine you'll be similar in the scheme was maybe 50% better, some good play action stuff, still some stuff that makes you tear your hair out, but some promising moments, but it's still a team that is heavily led by talent. But as we've said for ages, do you know what? They've got talent. So I don't mind if it's a little bit more simplistic. Is there anything very, very quickly, because we're going too long before we wrap up to the defense,
under center play
add?
action and the scramble drill were improvements. In just the quick 10,000 foot view, those were improvements. The rest of the pass game design still stinks, though.
Yeah.
Anytime the Eagles go 2x2, it's a wasted play.
Do you know, I heard something this week very quickly because I listened to it about an hour ago by Ollie Connolly. I was listening to his pod, not about Eagles specific, but he mentioned an Eagles stat. And if I get the stat wrong, I apologize. But I think he said something like the Eagles have gone 3x1 sets this year without any like movement or motion into it. Only like 45 times or something this year, which is like historically low, and they're like third in EPA or something, or sixth in success rate. So it's basically, long story short, the basic premise Ollie pointed out was they're really good at 3x1, and they don't do it very often, which doesn't surprise anyone here. But right, let's...
and they absolutely suck from 2x2 stacks, and they run it all the time.
But on that cheery note, if you want to learn more about why Shane hates everyone, go to Patreon. Check out the past game review, because as I mentioned, we are taking that back from the pod these days because Shane doesn't want to spend an hour recording something and then repeating his exact same points on here. Right, let's talk about defense.